Hi everyone, welcome to another ShareWise webinar. Today I am joined by BPH Energy, specifically the Executive Director and Managing Director, David Breeze. Thank you so much for joining me today, David.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak
So,
today.
today, David will take us through a presentation and then we'll go into the live Q&A where everyone will have an opportunity to ask David any questions that they have. To do so, please put your questions down the Q&A function down below. But before we get into it, David, could you tell us a little bit about BPH company for those that are unfamiliar?
So BPH has three primary investment areas. One's in Advent Energy, the second is in clean hydrogen technologies, and the third in cortical dynamics. Advent Energy primarily has an investment focus of PEP 11 offshore New South Wales. I'll come to that and describe that in more detail. Clean hydrogen technologies is a hydrogen production technology using a turquoise hydrogen production process that creates from methane gas, hydrogen and carbon or carbon black and carbon nanotubes. And cortical dynamics is in the medical technology device space. And the cortical has a device that is designed to assist the anaesthetist and the operating room theatre keep the patient optimally anaesthetized, as well as it has a design feature to keep a patient optimally in the analgesic state during an operation. So three significant areas of growth, but the primary driver that most investors are interested in is the Advent Energy.
Right. Okay. Well, with that being said, thank you for that introduction, and I'll hand it off to you for the presentation.
Thank you. So I'll talk mostly about gas and the current status. As you will all be aware, New South Wales last Thursday almost reached blackout stage in that the New South Wales government had to come on and through the public means ask people to turn off their pool pumps, washing machines and other electrical devices so that the power system could take the 40-degree plus heat that was in the heat wave last week in New South Wales. It shows you how critical the stage of the energy transition is in terms of the capacity for renewable energy to meet the requirements of the marketplace. And the government in October this year put out a future gas strategy consultation paper because the gas supply is decreasing faster than demand. And of course, as the minister said at the time, it will lead to shortages, supply disruption and high prices. I'll talk more to that shortly. If you look at this, which is an extract from that consultation paper, you'll see that out to 2034, the demand curve, which goes across the top of the page, does not get met by supply. In fact, there's an 800 petajoule a year shortage of supply over that time frame. And I'm going to give you context about that in just a moment in relation to the total demand. But what it really means is all of the domestic demand in New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania wouldn't be able to be met if all of the gas that was being produced out of Queensland was exported as LNG. Can Australia get that gas from Western Australia? No. If you look at the forecast again from that same consultation paper, you'll see that going out until 2029 through to 32, Western Australia itself runs short of supply over that same time frame. And so what you have is a really critical energy supply situation, particularly where we see that gas out into 2050, we're still going to need about 10 gigawatts of gas-fired power stations to supplement renewable energy over that time frame. And can you get that gas from the international marketplace? This presentation slide from Advent Energy shows the demand curve again in the red dotted line and supply over a 2032 timeframe. You can't get that gas from the international marketplace by way of LNG imports. In other words, we really need to get more gas out of the Australian marketplace. And to do that, we need to have more gas supply come online, in particular in the eastern seaboard area. So I talked briefly about South Australia, Tasmania, New South Wales and Victoria. You'll see there the petajoules per annum that is used in households and manufacturing in each of those states. And you can see there that that is over 800 petajoules a year. Now, you either supply gas to the international export market or you supply gas into the domestic marketplace. And if you supply gas purely into the domestic marketplace from the LNG facilities up in Queensland, then in fact, Japan, Taiwan, Korea, and other countries that rely on that LNG export would see that as a very significant risk to the energy transition within those own countries, which is why the Japanese Prime Minister and Japanese Energy Minister both have visited Australia and consistently spoken with Australian government officials about the need to keep the LNG supply into those countries out of Queensland. It's critical to their ongoing operations. So more gas is needed. I talked about the 10 gigawatts. The AEMO gas-fired power station, as you see right down the bottom, this is the ISP that they put out and said right out until 2050, we're going to need 10 gigawatts. In fact, we have around 11 gigawatts of gas-fired and liquid-fired power in eastern seaboard at the moment. So a real need to bring more gas into that marketplace. Again, if you look at this consultation paper, the LNG networks, Northern Territory supplies LNG into Japan and other countries. The Western Australian projects also supply, but then you have this significant demand out of Queensland. So in the eastern states, and I'm going to take you through to that, the pipeline from Northern Territory down into the eastern seaboard of Australia runs down, as you see, through the centre. But when the Blacktip field reduced production during this last year, they had to shut that pipeline down from the Northern Territory down and take gas, in fact, from the Inpex plant that normally exports into Japan. In other words, the whole system is at a tipping point in terms of the need to get more gas out of the Australian resource projects. And when you look at where we were in the slide just a moment ago, you'll see that the fields are limited. And I'm just going to now take you through into an offshore petroleum permit area and the onshore area. If you look at offshore, there are no more areas other than the PEP 11 project offshore New South Wales, and our gas project there is 26 kilometres out to sea. And the other major project is up in the Pilliga area in northern onshore New South Wales, which is under Santos. And Santos have said that the likely production capacity of that area is around 70 petajoules per year. But in the last month, they determined and announced that they would not be reaching a final investment decision on that project until 2025. In other words, as the Bass Strait fields reduce in production capacity over last year, this year, and the next couple of years, we really need to bring more gas into the system, and that's exactly the conclusion that the DESA paper leads you to. So now I'll take you to PEP 11 and I'll talk a little more about that, and I'll move quickly through these additional slides. So PEP 11's got 4,700 or 4,600 square kilometres. It's on the doorstep of Newcastle. It has 5.7 TCF as a prospective recoverable resource. It's a gas project. It's well out to sea. When you look at the Bass Strait fields, they have produced over 6 TCF of gas into the eastern seaboard over the last 60 years. In other words, success in the offshore project at PEP 11 has the capacity to meet the New South Wales domestic demand, and New South Wales currently imports from other states 100% of all of the gas that it uses. So 2 new gas-fired power stations are needed in New South Wales, and probably more. The project that we have has carbon storage potential. And of course, I've spoken at the introduction about the hydrogen potential for our clean hydrogen technology. I'll just take you through to this slide to touch on one more point. If you look at the green triangles out to 2040, you see that that is in fact the maximum forecast in terajoules per day right through that period. In other words, the energy transition needs gas along with hydropower and wind and solar for the periods when wind and solar are not able to meet the energy requirements at night and in still periods of the day, and when the batteries are unable to meet the demand. So more gas is needed, and we think that that makes our PEP 11 project very important to the eastern seaboard. This slide, again taken from the consultation paper, shows that the offshore area from New South Wales in the Sydney Basin, where we are, has the potential as a carbon storage area, and that's what we will seek to investigate with the approval of our project by the government, which we hope will come through in the very near future. I include this slide because whilst it's technical, it shows that as far back as 1993, it was recognised by Amperex, who was the joint venture partner with Santos in this project, that this offshore Sydney Basin area is in the gas phase. In other words, it's not an oil project, it's a gas project, because the depth of burial and temperature that the basin was submitted to, or subject to, sorry, over a geological phase turned it from oil into gas phase. So we have a 6,000 acre drill target, 2,000 metres subsea floor. To give you context, the drill target that we're looking at there is 20 square kilometres. And you've got 300,000 jobs rely on gas supply in New South Wales, 1.3 million households and 33,000 businesses. Gas is really important to the New South Wales economy, but it's also important to the national economy for the production of fertiliser. AdBlue is the additive into diesel to reduce emissions out of diesel combustion engines. and also it's used in everything from rare earths processing through to bricks and bakeries. So more gas is needed, and that's what the conclusion is. And our clean hydrogen technology process is the final couple of slides that I'll talk to. When Bill Gates came to Australia at the beginning of this year, he told the Prime Minister and the Energy Minister that turquoise hydrogen was an area that that Bill Gates was invested in, and that they saw as a really important part of the future alternative hydrogen technology, hydrogen production technology. And that's the type of project that we've invested in, because it has a low cost of production, and a zero carbon dioxide emissions in the production of the turquoise hydrogen from methane gas. Final point is we, of course, have got this in our Cortical dynamics. We have the agreement with Philips, and Philips is in over 50% of the operating theatres on a worldwide basis. So with the FDA, TGA, CE approvals of our Cortical device, we're in a very good position. Now, you have some questions to come from your people, and I'm quite happy to try and deal with those questions now.
Thank you so much, David, for that presentation. That was great. Thank you. For those that have joined us midway through, you're welcome to please put your questions in the Q&A function down below. I have a few pre-submitted questions, so let's get through to those first. So first of all, someone asked, as an investor, what are the likelihoods of making a buck out of your firm's involvement in these medical involvements?
So the medical technology, as I've referred, we have FDA approval in the United States. FDA takes us into the largest medical device space. We already have a device that is approved for sale in Australia and Europe, and now we have the capacity to sell that into the United States. What we're doing at the moment is, in fact, having upgraded the sensor, dam, and display screen for the device. We're in the process of having those now certified for distribution. So the next phase is to go into sales, both through the Philips capacity and also direct to market in the areas that the Philips screen does not cover. So we are extremely positive about the capacity to create real value for shareholders out of our investment in Cortical Dynamics.
Okay. And the biggest, most popular question I have received is, when will we get an answer regarding PEP 11? When do you think it will be approved? And a few people are asking, what's the potential holdup with this decision?
So we went through a process where the federal court, by consent of the government, overturned the previous refusal to extend the permit. That occurred in February of this year. We went through a process with the regulator, NOPTA, where we provided information to them about our intended project operations. NOPTA we know because the NOPTA website showed that they'd made a recommendation to the government, and that was several months ago. The timeframe now rests with the joint authority, that is the federal and state ministers for resources and energy, to approve the permit, and we are now waiting for that approval. And I can't give a precise time frame, but everything that I spoke about earlier about the need for more gas shows the need for a timely decision to be made in order that we can proceed to the drilling of the target at Baleen.
And a few people have noticed that the Bounty Oil and Gas Twitter account recently posted that they were expecting imminent imminent approval of the PEP 11 on January 2nd. Someone wants to ask, is that a data or information-driven estimation?
So it is an estimate. As best I can tell, I've not spoken to Bounty. But what I do know, and I can tell your listeners, is that the Minister for Resources, Federal Minister, Minister King, has actually posted a notice of the closure of her electorate office, I understand, over the Christmas period. And so, in fact, that estimate would be based, as best I can tell, around the reopening of that office.
Okay. And we have another question here submitted. Hi, Mr. Breeze and fellow BPH shareholders. Great efforts. The company has a lot to offer and contribute to the country, the people, and investors. What options are available for PEP 11 development if we don't get approval? What does the future hold for PEP 11?
So that's a matter that I can't give you a precise answer to that. We took this matter to court before, and obviously it is, were there to be a refusal, that legal alternative is obviously available to us, but we don't, we're not at that point at the moment. We think that the future gas strategy shows just how critical that additional gas supplies are into the east coast of Australia.
Okay. And someone asked, hi, David, considering the share price volatility, is there a time frame for the JA to act upon our application?
There is no legislated time frame for the JA to make a decision. It's merely that we've taken 12 months to go through this process at the moment, and we know that NOPTA has made a recommendation.
And why does the biggest state in Australia with the largest population not produce its own gas?
So over a period of time, the previous New South Wales government went through a process of shutting down coal seam gas projects. We think that because they were relying on other states to produce the gas. Now, the whole marketplace has changed, but in particular, the Victorian marketplace, when I spoke about the 50% reduction in the output capacity of the Victorian fields, that all came, or rather the entire needs of New South Wales that came from Victoria came up through the pipeline. That no longer can be relied upon for future. So our gas project takes on a significantly greater importance for the east coast of Australia, we believe.
Okay, thank you. And moving on to clean hydrogen technologies, we've gotten a few questions. Clean energy uses catalysts to speed up the process of splitting hydrocarbons into hydrogen and carbon. However, it needs to be heated to around 900 degrees Celsius. What is used to provide this energy in the commercial process proposed?
So I will answer that in a slightly different way. It is so that turquoise hydrogen or pyrolysis technologies have an objective and a capacity to reach $2 a kilogram production cost for hydrogen, as opposed to the alternative methodologies, which can be as high as $6 or even $12 a kilogram. In other words, the electrical or heating cost for this is significantly less and right at the bottom end of the cost curve for hydrogen production.
Okay, and will MMR be trading again before the 2-year limit expires?
So we have in fact already passed the 2-year limit, but as we've made the information available in the releases for MEC, the government is ASX is waiting for the approval for NOPTA in order to allow for their decision on the requotation of MEC resources. In other words, we had 2 court cases to win or to settle. Both of those were achieved, and now we're waiting for the approval.
And someone here has asked, what did the latest NOPTA recommendation provide to the JA?
I can't comment on that, except to say we believe that it was a positive recommendation because it was made several months ago.
And
when I gave you an answer earlier about the regulated time frame, there are regulated time frames in relation to the interface of decision making between the New South Wales Minister and the Federal Minister. And each of those timeframes, and I'm summarising quickly here, is a period of around 30 days. And that timeframe, if you will, has now passed in terms of a strict timeframe accounting.
right, okay. And I'm not sure if you can answer this one either, but someone asked, will the shares go into trading halt prior to an approval by the joint authority, or will the NOPTA website show approval while the shares are open to trade?
I can't answer that precisely. Normally, we would expect to receive advice in such a way that we would put the stock immediately into a trading halt so that we can get an announcement out about the decision.
Okay, thank you. And I think one more question from the viewers to conclude, where to hear from for BPH, and I guess from myself, what can we expect from the company in 2024?
So in summary, each of the areas that we're talking about, and we made a release just in the last week on the hydrogen technology and the advances that they've made, but also in terms of Cortical, we've made further releases on where their technology has got to. And of course, I've just spoken at length about the PEP11 project. Each of those has the potential to give significant uplift in value during the next year.
Okay, thank you so much, David, and thank you so much to everyone that submitted questions. I noticed we had a few people that raised their hands. Perhaps if you still have any questions, please email me and I can pass them on to David, or contact David directly. But thank you so much, David, for joining me today.
Thanks indeed, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, everyone.